Getting hit multiple times coming out of that bike section. More drivers coming to blows.
Well, hello and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back here to Slow Motion Broadcasting, and welcome back to the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. This is round number 9 this season, coming to you today from Barber Motorsports Park. My name is Ron Maunz. Alongside me in the commentary booth is Charles Boshell. Guido Marzucchi is our producer for today's broadcast. Charles, we're in your backyard here for this race. Barber really needs no introduction. I don't feel qualified to really give it, so how about you give it a shot?
Yeah, sure. Barber Motorsports Park obviously started as a motorcycle track, obviously in coordination with the Barber Museum that sits just off of turn 9 there. on the track. Beautiful facility. We talk about this as being the Augusta of racetracks. Just a fantastic place to come watch a race, come see the museum as well. They've resurfaced it. Obviously, we've got the new scan here at iRacing, so complete rework of the track surface. Looking pretty good. Cars look really racy today, so looking forward to a good race here. And it's going to be fun. Very difficult track here, Barber. The Indy drivers say this is the most difficult race they have to deal with physically on the current schedule. So, if those guys are struggling through here, you can imagine what these other cars are doing as well with our semi-professional and amateur racers and sim racers here. So, but I think we're going to have a good race. We've been to this track before. Drivers are pretty well familiar with it, obviously, with the new scan. It's going to be a little bit different, but I think these guys will cope with it very well, and we'll have us a good 40-minute race today.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to the past few Barber broadcasts we've had here on SMB. Obviously, this year, I remember the Brian and Dan show for the Formula Vs a couple of weeks ago. And Ray Esports Club Racing League action here for the Spec Miatas. I remember that that's an odd trio of races to have here, kind of in, I think probably a month between all of them. A little bit broken up, but still really odd set of circumstances. And many of the drivers kind of carrying over from one to another. Pretty stacked field of racers here for a track that is still a bit on the, I wouldn't say unpopular, but not a lot of people own this track. It is still behind that iRacing paywall, but really seeing the top of the top here in this series try and compete. Still about 8 minutes left to go here in qualifying. Here's how it stands right now. Sulal Shutwi is your current provisional pole sitter. Antonio Reese is your pole sitter in the Masters category. And Joachim Osbeck, your pole man in Spec 2. Before we take a look at the championship points, though, we do want to thank Nathaniel Schramm, Turner Machine Development, and Gager & Sons Power Systems for sponsoring this broadcast of the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors. We want to thank Nathaniel. We'll ride on board with him here in just a little bit. In the meantime, though, I think we'll take a little gander at our championship point standings as we head our way off towards the end of this season. Round 9, time flies when you are having fun, and it's really been Nathaniel Schramm's season up to this point. Your current championship points leader by 102 points. Jason Green slotted there in P2. May have a fight on his hands between himself and Dirk Braun if things go cataclysmically wrong, but the gap even larger between those drivers. Actually, no, it is not even larger. It's nearly even, 103 points between those drivers. So still definitely a vast yawning chasm separating your top three. Marco Pinero has really come alive towards the end of this season, slotted in fourth. Aleix Pleva rounds out your top 5. We'll take a look now at Spec 2, where Phil Berry sits atop of the championship points lead right now. Hughes Simpkins is in second. Joshua Wilkie is slotted in third with Paul Jackson. And Steve Saunders completing your top 5. I will now take a little gander at the Masters category, where Antonio Reese is your points leader over there. 111 points, the gap to himself and Chris Thorpe. Tom Gradwell in third with Rich Meesters and Brad Cathcart completing your top 5. That's how it looks in the points. And a reminder, folks, is round number 9 of this season. So time running out for these drivers to make some big inroads. We'll say, I think some of our championships, notably in Spec 1 with Nathaniel Schramm and Masters with Antonio Reese, pretty much set in stone, but still some odd opportunities to try and claw some points in the final few weeks of this season. Charlotte next time at Aragon for the penultimate round, and then Monza on the junior layout to round this season off. But Charles, today we've got Barber. There's an odd track. Happy to talk us through it.
Oh, absolutely. Let's run down the front straight here as we make our way down pit straight. And start finish straight as we head down into turn 1. You're going to hit on those binders about the 100. Make that dive in, get as close as you can to that inside curb, but do not cross over it as we work through the roller coaster section here. These are turns 2 and 3 as we work our way down into this little valley here and then back up over for turn 4. Get as close to that inside curb as you can there. Also, we're going to get our very, very touchy braking point here for turn 5. This is the hairpin, Charlotte's Web, if you want to call it that. As we roll out, we get a very, very nothing burger in turn 6 as we make our run down into probably the most difficult section here of the track. This is what I call museum corner. Is a 7, 8, 9 chicane here. As you see, really got to attack the curbs on both sides. And we bypass the museum under the walkover bridge and make our run down here into 10 and 11. A little quick left-right chicane, just almost full tilt coming through there. And now we get another little difficult section here. This is 12 and 13. This is tunnel corner. As you're going to see, you're going to take it to the inside there, and you're really going to take a lot of curb there because you got a blind apex there, the blind crest, as we work our way through 14. And then we're going to go 15A and 16, or 15 and 16, or 14A and B, or whatever. But this is the final corner, and we're going to work our way back around to the start-finish line. And that is a very quick run here on a 2.4-mile track for these spec racers, and that is Nate Schramm in charge there, and has increased, and is almost a dead heat there for P2 with Saul Al-Shutwi. Did increase his lap time, but did not increase his position, so he is still qualified in third.
Yeah, so Schramm looking to try and make something up between now and the end, but he doesn't need to make up a whole lot. You can see 16 thousandths of a second, the gap between your top two, another 16 thousandths of a second back from Al-Shutwi in second to Schramm in P3. That is insanely tight here in this session. We're never really sure exactly what we're going to expect here in this series, but what we're seeing right now is super competitive racing. I'm going to quickly look and see. I'm going to amend my previous statement. I said it was 16 thousandths between Al-Shutwi and Schramm. We actually have our gaps up at the moment from the leader. So Al-Shutwi and Schramm tied on the lap time. According to our graphics, according to the iRacing live timing, it's only 1,000th apart. 1,000th on a 2.38 mile long racetrack, though, is probably about a millimeter. So right now, Al-Shutwi holding on to that spot on the front row alongside Jason Green, pretty much by a fly's mustache.
Exactly right. Yeah, very, very tight there as we're on board here with Scott Russell, currently slotted in 10th position. Having a good run. Scott's having some really good runs as of late, really increased his pace, but it's a little bit off there. He's going to be behind a couple of Masters drivers and the Spec 2 pole sitter of Hugh Simpkins. I was really shocked that this is the 9th round of the season, and the gap between P1 and P2 in the Spec 2 class is 8 points. I mean, it's just, you two guys really working hard and having some really great success in the form of Hugh Simpkins and Phil Berry. So we'll see. Obviously, Simpkins with a little bit of an advantage here in qualifying, about 3/10 up over Berry, and has Joaquin Osbeck there in between them in 11th. So Phil's going to have a little bit of work to do during the race today, and Hughes is going to have to just really play it cool and keep that car underneath him. But yeah, it's going to be a really interesting race here. I did notice that we do have a couple of guys missing as Felipe Pulse moves up to pole with a 134.903. Missing Marco Pinero, missing Alsh Pleva today. Not here in the sim, so that's going to be a bonus for those guys that are just ahead of them in the points. They can stretch that gap a little bit further. And a couple of new drivers, and Pulse being one of those. I don't remember him being on the I don't remember calling his name out during the course of our broadcast. So new driver out on the track, and obviously some really good pace in that car, setting the pole against some of our really our standard bearers that we normally see up at the front. Also, a little bit further back, we've got Larry Miles, Canadian, and Martin van Ekeland, who is, I believe, Dutch. Have not set a qualifying time, so don't know if they're still in the server or not. But they did sign up for the race, but we just don't have any time for them as of yet.
Yeah, and so not able to get some representative lap times on the board here in this qualifying session. We'll hope to see them out there on the racetrack come time for the race, just not here in qualifying, with time running at 15 seconds left on the clock, and the fight for pole very much so on. Pole's able to jump in front. The Brazilian behind the wheel, that number 25 car, able to just battle in front of Jason Green. This is, I wouldn't say it's a make or break race for Jason Green, because he's going to have to hope for several Christmas miracles to try and reel in Nathaniel Schramm at the end of the season. I'm not even sure if it is logistically possible, even with drops and everything taken into consideration. That is a large margin for Nathaniel Schramm. I'm sure Jason Green is just looking for a win. He has been consistently quick throughout the season. I mean, we always expect consistency and speed out of Jason Green. That's just kind of his motif here on iRacing. He's always rather fast. But we haven't seen him break through into that victory quite yet. Now, we still, as I said a bit earlier on, we still have 4 races left to go here between now and season's end. So I'm never going to rule it out, never going to say never, but we shall see whether today could be the day for Green to finally break through. Heading his way towards the line right now, looked yellow in the first 2 sectors, not able to improve on that lap time. He will remain in P2. Looking at your graphics, so I'm not seeing anybody be able to improve. Tom Gradwell was able to set a personal best in the first sector. Dennis Furia able to go his personal best in the middle, but I'm not sure if anybody is able to get something rocking and rolling right now. This track is one where I feel like compared to the rest of the calendar here, Charles, qualifying just takes a completely different dynamic. Doubly so, I'm looking now, track temperatures 117.
Yeah, that sounds about right for this time of year. It's we've got a nice 88 degree day today. So it looks like the air temp is pretty spot on. Kind of normal weather here for mid-May. In Birmingham, Alabama. So, it's going to be a hot track. It's going to be slick. It's going to make these drivers slide it around, as we saw as we were watching Jason Green, see him coming around through 14 A and B and just really hanging on to the rear of that car as he was yawing it around those corners, trying to just extract as much speed. But you see that even in qualifying, after 20 minutes, the tires kind of start giving up. And the 40-minute race, it's going to be interesting to see who can manage their tires for that full 40 minutes.
Yeah, so with high track temperatures, tire management going to be massive here at this track that is not really known for being one that is good on tires. We talked about the layout a bit earlier on. 16 turns packed into a track less than 2 miles. You know, I was doing a broadcast yesterday at the Red Bull Ring. If anybody was curious why I was absent from that show, again, as I said right towards the end of that broadcast, make sure when booking your schedule that you know the difference between Greenwich Mean Time and British Summertime. But I digress. I was saying that the Red Bull Ring was a busy track. This kind of cranks that up a notch, so we'll have to see how these drivers can manage it here in this 9th race of the season. In the meantime, though, let's take a look at your starting grid. It's going to be Felipe Poles starting this race from the pole position. Jason Green going to join him on the front row. Nathaniel Schramm, the sponsor of today's broadcast. Thank you to Gager & Sons and Turner Machine Development for sponsoring this broadcast as well. He'll start on 3rd next to Sul Al-Shutwi, looking to break through. Dirk Braun will start this race in 5th. Next to him will be real-life Spec Racer 4 driver Joshua Justice. Chris Murakami will grab the pole in the Masters category. Next to your Spec 2 pole sitter of Hugh Simpkins. Antonio Reese will start this race in 9th, and Adam Bradshaw will complete your top 10.
Yeah, starting in 11th will be Scott Russell. Joaquin Osbeck on the outside of row 6 in 12th. Jorg Monty starts in 13th. Phil Berry will start in P14. 15th will be Chris Thorpe. Outside of Chris will be Rich Meesters in 16th. Adam Bradshaw Jr. in 17th. Great run last week. We'll see how he can add to that this week. Starts in 17th. Tom Gradwell will start in P18th. Diego Todeschini starting in 19th. Marcus Burkett rounding out your top 20. Brad Cathcart starts in 21st. 22nd is Jeff Jacobson. Jason Dunnington will be in 23rd. Dennis Fury is starting in 24th. Paul Jackson in 25th. Jeff Wepker starts in 26th. Andrew Love starting in 27th, and he is out on the grid. However, Martin Van Eekelen and Larry Miles are not on the grid as of this point in time, so I'm going to assume they are not going to start the race. So we'll have 27 cars lined up side by side, get ready to get this race underway as we're going to have a short pace lap.
Yeah, so the field heading their way off through the 7, 8, and 9 complex here. This is a bizarre set of turns. Doesn't matter what kind of car you're running here. It's basically like like a Singapore Sling-esque section heading into a downhill open hairpin. There's really, I don't think anything like this track, and there's really nothing like that section right there. Very odd moments have gone down there over the years. Some side-by-side racing, and if you can get a move done there, you will be an absolute hero. I will still never forget the prototype challenge car. I think it was in Grand Am back in about 2012. Drove off the track to avoid a spun GT car in front of them, hit the grass, and just shattered to a halt in about 5 feet. Just dug right in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's they call it the corkscrew. However, we all know that Laguna Seca has the only corkscrew in racing. That is a smaller version, but yeah, same concept. Left, a right, left, right. To try and get through that section on a downhill, so you got to watch your brakes through there, and you've got to take a little bit of curb to extract the most pace out of that corner. So we'll coming around here past pit entry, and which will be a little difficult today. We may have to talk about that as well, and we're ready to get this race underway.
And here we go. Green flag set to come out right about now, and the drivers are on their way. We're racing here at Barber Motorsports Park. Fantastic start there from Pole's going to pull away into the race lead, heading down to turn number 1. Sorry, that was a softball. I had to swing at that. Side by side a little bit farther behind. Drivers looking to get some moves done and squabble up early as they head their way into turn number 2. Good opportunities at the start of this lap, but the 1-2 punch to start off this lap, not really one of them. The drivers just have to give themselves a fighting chance heading into the first heavy braking zone of turn number 5. Already seeing some drivers chase each other's tails behind, try and go for some maneuvers. That's Antonio Reese with a bad double lockup heading into the turn. Very lucky to keep that car woed up. A little bit of 3 wide racing and a couple of spots there on the road. Up at the front, though, it still pulls leading into turn 7.
Yeah, pulls with a good lead as Green follows him down into that corkscrew, the museum chicane and museum corner, as we see all the cars making their way through. So far, so good. Not seeing any issues. It looks like everybody is kind of behaving themselves here at the start of the race, and we'll get through turn 9 safely and head our way down the back half of the circuit.
And side-by-side racing involving Jeff Jacobson. That was heading off through turn number 10 and 11. There's a very good reason why drivers don't usually go side-by-side through there, and that's because it usually ends in tears. Same could be said about 12 and 13, but they finally single file out. Decide, you know what, we're not going to tempt fate here early on in this race. Can you blame them? I certainly can't. Up at the front, though, Pole's going to lead the first lap over Jason Green, over Nathaniel Schramm, Sulau, Shutwee, Dirk Braun. Complete your top 5. You look a little bit farther behind, only 3 more cars at the tail end of that front pack as Josh Justice, Chris Murakami, and Hugh Simpkins. From there, a second wedge already drawn between the 8th place runner of Simpkins and your 9th place runner of Adam Bradshaw.
Yeah, a little bit of a gap starting to form here. It's kind of what you expect at this track. Is it's not going to be the easiest in the world in trying to keep up with the draft. There's a couple of decent drafting zones, obviously, down the front straight. Then the run down into turn 9, it's hard braking zone. And then, turn 5. And then as well on the way out. But it's they're very short, so you're not going to get a lot of draft built up. So you're going to have to rely on the little bit of overspeed you're going to get, plus some heavy braking to actually make moves coming through there as we're working our way through. Still nose to tail there as we do see that little gap now. Scott Russell Bradshaw has caught up to the back of the lead group. Scott Russell running a little bit wide through 9 there. They think he'll have a challenge from Antonio Reese, but manages to slot back in front. So now there's the gap between 9 and 10.
And so already seeing some groups form. It's like high school. You just have cliques forming throughout the entirety of the field. Small little breakaways here. You've got your top 9 now. So Adam Bradshaw was able to break away, actually close in that margin, and now a 1.8 second gap between himself and Scott Russell. So your top 9 driving away from there. 10th all the way down to 19th in their own little battle. There we saw Tom Gradwell holding on to the final spot inside the top 20. He's the Pied Piper of a little train, with Jeff Webker falling back there. Only 2 drivers out of this race. They're the 2 drivers that didn't start this race as we expected there. The Dutchman of Martin van Eckelen, as well as the Canadian of Larry Miles. Those two out of the race before it even got started. A smooth start, though, here at Barber Motorsports Park for round number 9 of this season. I want to thank you all for tuning into the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting today. Still early doors, still a lot of battles left to be determined, and waiting for these drivers to fully settle down so they can say, okay, now we're comfortable, now we can start to fight, like these two here in the camera shots.
Yeah, that was, I believe, Joaquin Osbeck on the inside of Rich Meesters there, making the hard dive down into turn 5, getting that pass done. It's going to move him up to P13 as the lead group heads their way down into the chicane. And it looks like maybe Scott's closing that gap up just a little bit as he's trying to, but we've got basically 3 packs at this point. So you've got the lead pack, the mid pack, and then the pack in the back. And it must be true because it rhymed. So we feel contact there between Meesters and Phil Berry. A little bump there coming through the fast left right, and just not enough room there to really make passes. And you saw the result there when somebody tried it.
Yeah, no, that's the worry. There are some good overtaking opportunities around this racetrack, but the back half of the circuit really doesn't have any. We saw the side-by-side racing into 10 and 11. We saw the side-by-side racing into 12 and 13. Those are sections that I'm going to mark as just straight off no.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. That's my scientific
summary.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the best that you can hope for is you will see some cars as we get a little closer and we get a little racier. They'll be really trying to push their advantage through the tunnel turn there over the hill and just run wide out into the grass, and you might can slip down. Or you could just take that inside line through 14A and B coming back up toward pit entry and try and slip around there. But there, as you said, very few and far between as far as places to really make a strong move here.
Yeah, no, you got to think about the heavy braking zones, primarily turn number 5. That's a good spot to get a move done there. It's the slow sections that are good here. The thing is with these cars, I love the Spec Racer Ford, both as an announcer and a driver. This car was actually what helped me probably make the most amount of license progression I've ever been able to make in my very brief time in the iRacing officials. I don't think I've run official racing since about 2024. I cannot handle that stress and anxiety of lining up against a bunch of people that I have no idea about. But when I was running in the Spec Racer Ford officials, just getting my in with how these cars drove and how they behaved, although there have been many updates that I have driven over the years, the handling in the Spec Racer Fords, all in all, I would say, is a bit vague. I think that's the main problem with trying to get a move done heading off into turn number 10 and 11 or 12 and 13. Those high-speed sections, when the car feels, for lack of a better term, floaty, you can go for a move there, but you also may learn about every single intricate detail inside of the runoff area shortly thereafter.
Yeah, is one of those where you don't really order a turn. You just kind of put in a request and hope that it gets approved as you're trying to make corners in this car. Just a lot of roll in here. It's I would say outdated technology, but it is kind of outdated technology. We're not talking about drive-by-wire here. So we are talking about, gears and spindles trying to make this car go through corners. As we see now Jason Green making the pass and moving up to the front. So nice move there, heading down into the chicane, going to get by Pulse and take over P1 with Schramm in third, Al Shutby in fourth, and Dirk Braun rounding out your top 5. As Pulse now running a little wide coming through that fast left right and has another challenge in the form of Nate Schramm right behind him.
And thinking about the other race that we have in store here on the Spec Racer Fords, I flashed my mind back to that Brian and Dan show for the Formula V's a couple of weeks ago. I say a couple of weeks ago, it's probably about 2 months ago at this point. See, at this point, my perception of time has just completely been thrown asunder. But I remember that race being super competitive. If you think about those Formula V's, in the end, oh my goodness, look at that dive there from Dennis Fury on Brad Cathcart. Gets a little sideways snap as he headed his way through turn number 15, gonna have to yield that spot. thought, where in the world did that come from? I think Cathcart was a little bit choked up behind Jeff Jacobson. Furia sensed an opportunity and dove it down the inside. That was certainly brave, but certainly a little bit of contact there as well. These drivers still have to worry about those incident points. But getting back to what I was saying about the Formula V race, it was that mix of really twisty sections around this track to keep these drivers on their toes, but enough high-speed sections, primarily that back end of the circuit and that start-finish straightaway, that allowed these drivers in these draft-heavy cars to be packed in like sardines. Three-wide racing there, heading off into the turn. Adam Bradshaw Jr., the biggest loser in all of that. He's now side-by-side with Phil Berry as Rich Meesters was able to get the move done on the both of them there. We're seeing that same style of racing. The field's still packed in, very competitive racing, but these drivers still have to have their wits about them.
Yeah, absolutely. As Bradshaw Jr. there was in the middle and had the inside line initially, but left open, left a gap, and Meesters filled that gap, took it to the inside, and made the move around both him and Barry. So great opportunistic move by Rich Meesters to move up to 14th. As this battle still goes on between Barry and Bradshaw Jr., not wanting to give that spot up very easily, but has to concede that coming over the hill there at the tunnel turn, and now has Diego Todeschini behind as well. So this still not over, as Bradshaw Jr. feeling really racy today, feeling like he could be a little further up, but is having trouble getting cars cleared.
Yeah, it's the troubles about getting overtakes, as we do see pit stops. Brad Cathcart, Jeff Jacobson down in pit lane. First two to break away. We usually would see Stevie be the main indicator when the pit window is open, but now I guess it's Brad Cathcart and Jeff Jacobson coming down pit lane first of them all. Now, a big difference, obviously, between the Formula V Weekend Warriors and the Spec Racer Fords. No pit stops there in the Vs, so those drivers were just able to battle it out. So, although I think the racing out there on the road going to be very similar, these very similar draft-heavy cars, I think there's definitely a different dynamic thrown into the midst of it. As you can see, Chris Thorpe making contact there. Was that Jason Dunn? No, pardon me, that was Tom Gradwell that he made contact with heading into 5.
Yeah, just a little hip check there by Chris Thorpe on the inside, and just kind of rooted Gradwell out of his line. And didn't see any damage on those two cars. As we're back up front here, is Schramm still all over the back of Pulls, as well as Al Shutway there as well. But Green maintaining that lead, heading his way down for another lap. And yeah, this might not be a bad place to maybe try the undercut, just get some clean air. I don't think we're gaining a lot by running in the draft. I don't think we're gaining just tons of time. So maybe this is a place where running by yourself, you might actually pick up a little bit of time on the group that you're fighting with currently.
It was Andrew Love with a slowdown.
Yeah.
That is going to sting heading off through that final sector. I'm surprised we haven't really talked about the slowdowns to this point. Very, very easy to pick them up, especially in these Spec Racer Fords, where, not saying they have the most power in the world, there are cars that are slower here on iRacing and have less power, but there's not a lot of them, as Simpkins goes for the dive on Murakami heading into turn number 5. You got to shave every single inch to foot that you can around this track, so sometimes those slowdown penalties will be a bit of a common occurrence.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a couple of little slowdown areas, especially, I would say, 9, 10, 11, and 12 as well, as we come through this little quick left-right, and that you can get a slowdown there on the left-hand side. You got to be very careful. You want to float it out as far as you can, but you want to keep it on the dark gray stuff, not the light gray stuff, as well. Also with that come over the hill there. For 11 and 12, you want to, if you run it wide, then you can see Josh Justice there as well with the slowdown. So Justice doing a good job running. His 6th place, was still in that lead group. So now he's going to drop out of that draft, and he's got to work his way back up as he drops about 0.8 of a second there, having to serve that slowdown penalty.
Yeah, and that is super unfortunate. Kind of lose touch with that pack and fall off into no man's land. Maybe fall into the crutches of Hugh Simpkins. We'll have to find out as a trio of pit stops going down here at the end of this lap. Phil Berry, Marcus Burkett, and Jason Dunnington, latest drivers come down pit lane. One representative from all three of our classes here in this series. Fascinating to see these drivers break away in pit lane in very different times from one another. I don't think we've seen any real unification here in this race of what to do, what not to do. Everybody knows exactly what they need to do to try and win this race, but it's just finding somebody that has that same sort of thought process. Very, very tricky to find. Unlike those slowdowns that are easy to find, we're kind of heading off into 4 or even a 5-leaf clover sort of territory where it is, you can spend all your day looking through a lawn and you're never going to find it.
Yeah, absolutely. As we're down to a 4-car pack at the front, as Dirk Braun's kind of dropped off that as well. So Dirk unable to keep up with the pace of the lead 4. So it's Green, Puls, Schramm, and Al Shutwee. Your top 4. A little further back is Dirk Braun, and then Josh Justice as well, a little further back also from that slowdown. Still trying to recover his time. Hugh Simpkins having a great run, running in P7. Overall, leading the Spec 2 class, and Chris Murakami right behind him, leading the Masters class. We'll see him running a little wide there. Al Shutwee running off into the grass. As I said, Chris Murakami leading Masters, running in P8, as we saw another car coming in. That's Joaquin Osbeck. So early pit stops are being utilized here, and we'll keep an eye out as so far we've had 5 drivers pit. Fastest pit time, Marcus Burkett, 10.7. Slowest pit time, Jason Dunnington, 14.2.
It was Dennis Furia, who's been through the ringer so far here in this race. He has just come down pit lane, and you can see him overshoot the marks a little bit there and sliding off the track. And I think he decided, you know what? Now's a better time than ever to file down pit lane here. So we can call it smooth. It may be about as slick as 8-grit sandpaper once we took a look at the replay, but a pretty good rebound. Otherwise, he would have found himself in the wall. I like those shots that we had there, though. Very good unintentional work from Guido in the production truck. I was going to mention this. That pit entry is absolutely foul. It is basically like a tight little alleyway that these drivers are having to drive around. Guido read my mind there.
Yeah, absolutely is. It's you come up the hill from 14B for those final 2 corners, and it's you're right off the racing line. It's kind of, you drive straight as opposed to making the corner, and then you got a hard 90-degree right and then another 90-degree left to get your way down pit lane. And it is very, very tough. It's hard. You really, it's one of those things that you don't talk about practicing pit entries, but this is one that you need to practice. Otherwise, you're going to be in an Armco barrier in short order.
You know, one small little mistake and you are in for a world of hurt. So these drivers definitely need to play this very, very smartly. Otherwise, you know, the consequences will be big. We think about Barber being a very safe track. It's been open for many, many moons, and to my knowledge, there's never really been a fatal accident outside of the tragic passing of the original Georgina a couple of years ago during the IndyCar race. It is a very safe racetrack, but the drivers who have found the barrier, I think back to Scott McLaughlin's practice accident that he had here this past year. Obviously, very odd circumstances. Can't do that on iRacing, but with the high speeds and the really quick and on-the-edge turns that you have to negotiate, even here in these low downforce, low-power Spec Racer Fords, you know, one small little blip, either missing an apex by a little bit or clipping a curb too much, and those consequences will be disastrous.
Absolutely, yeah. There's not a lot of room for error. It's I think the 45-foot width on the track, so about 15 meters or so for Guido and everybody else who speaks metric. So it's you know, you can go 2 and 3 wide, 3 wide some places, except for the corners, and the corners just won't allow it. As we see Russell and Murakami, as Russell gets pushed wide, they're coming through at 12. Has managed to get that locked down and recovered very nicely. Dropped a couple positions. Is going to fall down to P10 as he gets behind Adam Bradshaw. who was trying to track down Murakami for the Spec for the Masters lead. We get a replay here, a little high on the cockpit or the chopper cam, a little contact there. So just got caught up a little bit behind Murakami, not quite the same pace. And as you can see, car wanting to let go as he rejoins the track. Scott did a great job of getting that car recovered and keeping it in a straight line.
Yeah, a little hop, skip, and a jump through the grass, avoiding the gravel, and thankfully for him as well, avoiding the barrier too. We've remained fairly smooth here in this race, getting close to the halfway mark. I want to thank you all once again for tuning into the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting. Today's broadcast of the Spec Racer Ford Weekend Warriors brought to you by Nate Schramm, who's currently running quite well in this race himself, as perfect timing to cut to a replay of him getting a move done for second on Felipe Pulls. Now is heading into turn number 12 and 13. You can get a move done through there, but you have to play ball. But well, thank Nathaniel Schramm for making this broadcast possible, along with Gager and Sons Power System and Turner Machine Development. Keep an eye on him as he runs in second right now. Pretty much just needs to have a bodily temperature roughly in the 90s, and this season's Spec 1 championship is his.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Is he's putting the feet right, so to speak, as he is just not making a lot of mistakes. As we see two cars there, a little monkey see, monkey do there between Scott Russell and Jorg Monty, as both cars running a little wide coming out of the tunnel turn. And Jorg ran a little bit deeper than Scott did, but both managed to hang on, kept two tires on the track, and able to get the car back righted up. As we saw another car come in to the pits, that's Adam Bradshaw Jr. making his pit stop. So he's going to come out from P13 or 14, and is going to go in and get his stop done. And we'll see where he comes out in relation to the other cars who have already pitted.
And soon enough, we'll have to talk about some of those pit stop times. Right now, the other driver with the shortest pit stop, according to what I'm seeing, is Marcus Burkett at 10.65 seconds down pit lane here. So potential Thompson Trophy candidate. That's about 1 second slower than the next closest driver in that regard. Yep. That being Jeff Jacobson at 11.22. So usually we poke fun at our buddy, Mr. Joshua Wilkie, but he is not here in this race. We'll have to see if anybody else may potentially pick up a Thompson Trophy or pick up a Wilkie Trophy for having enough fuel to run 3 of these races back-to-back by the end.
Well, we've already got a candidate for the Wilkie Award for the longest pit stop time. That is Adam Bradshaw Jr., 23.9. Most of the rest of the drivers were doing anywhere from 11 to 13. So misjudged that one just a little bit.
Yeah, that is definitely a lengthy stop. May be able to run all the way back to the UK there. Yeah, I wonder how the Spec Racer Ford would work as a boat. I've often said that there are some cars here on iRacing that I think could work as plushies. I think the Spec Racer Ford would probably be able to work as many things outside of a race car. Would be able to work as a Giant's door wedge. Would maybe be able to work as a boat as long as you filled up some of the gaps. These are the thoughts that go through my head in between your mics are hot and please go from production. So right now, keeping our eye on your top pack as we're just past the halfway mark right now. Diego Todeschini just came down pit lane. Jason Green is still your leader overall. Hugh Simpkins leads in the Spec 2 category. Jorg Monty is your third place runner in the Masters category. That is led at the moment by Chris Murakami. That's a battle for the final spot inside the top 10. Monty diving down the inside, heading his way off into turn number 5. Gonna have to get that spot and gonna have to yield in the case of Scott Russell, but the battle certainly going to be intense between those drivers. It's been odd to see Scott Russell in that old Miller throwback car. I look at that and I think of Bobby Rahal's old IndyCar paint schemes. There's definitely a Rusty Wallace throwback that looks exactly the same as that, but that's my IndyCar brain talking.
Yep, exactly right. As you saw Monty make that move, and he's got Scott Russell is in good hands there. He's got Monty leading, and he's got Antonio Reese trailing. So two of our legendary Masters drivers showing Scott Russell the way around the track. And Scott, I'm sure, would rather be in front of both of those cars and pulling away. But it's not easy to pull away from those guys. Those guys race pretty hard, even for Masters drivers. Those guys race really, really hard out here, and Jorg will be the first to tell you, don't try and fuel save. Just run 10 out of 10 every lap, and get what fuel you can when you come into the pit stop, and go out and run 10 out of 10 to the end of the race.
You know, this is a phrase that has probably never popped into the mind of Mani, but I'll say it anyways because it still fits. All gas, no brakes, shake and bake, do it for Dale. None of those words have ever popped into Guido's, not Guido's head, popped into Jorg's head. Have they? I know that Guido knows a fair amount about NASCAR. Guido, was that just gobbledygook coming out of my mouth to you, or did that have some sort of staying power? Alrighty, there we go. We're good. So, maybe we'll have to explain that here to Mani if he gets a good result out of this race and comes in for a little chat. I'm not sure exactly how that would go, but I've had to explain some of the crap that comes out of my mouth to my father. I had to explain some odd things in the past. So hey, I guess if it works, it works. Your top four is still covered by basically nothing as they head their way into 12 and 13 right now. Jason Green still the Pied Piper of the field as these battles pretty much just all over the place. I really feel bad for Guido in the production truck, having to be like a chameleon looking at 16 different things at once as the side-by-side scraps go on throughout the pack as there's a lot of shuffling up at the front. I think I know what this is. Give me a PIT space STOPS pit stop time for Jason Green and Sul Al-Shatwi. Here they go. Yep,
there's two of our lead four in the pits at the 24-minute mark of the race, so they're going to come in just a little bit early. Jason, a lot of those guys used to running towards the end, but they decided, you know what, we're going to come in now. Looks like they had a plan. Maybe coming in, maybe had this worked out, coming in together, go back out together, keep the draft, and be able to run in fairly clean air. Not a lot of traffic, I don't think. We'll see as they come back out. They're going to slot in P12 and 13 with a very nice gap behind them. Of about 5.5 seconds or so, and then about 7.5 to 8 seconds in front. So got some nice clean air, can run some quick laps together as we'll see as Paul Jackson also coming into the pits. As we got Sul Al-Shatwi, as Guido was saying, short pit stop. Sul Al-Shatwi 10 seconds flat. Jason Green 13.25, and that is why there's a gap of 3.5 seconds between those two drivers.
Yeah, now Sul's pit stop just a tick over 10 seconds. It's not too far off of what Marcus Burkett did. So if Sul Al-Shatwi is in trouble, I think Marcus Burkett may be on a kebab because I think he's going to be cooked.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think both those guys are Thompson Trophy candidates for today. As we still got this battle here now, Adam Bradshaw joining that group that had Monty, Russell, and Reese together. So now you give them 4 cars combined. Schramm really taking a lot of extra curb on the outside there, taking it really wide out of 1, but manages to gather it up. Works his way through 2 and 3 quite fine as we see Monty making the move around Bradshaw. Maybe this breaks him up just a little bit as Russell now is going to have to try and find his way around as well. As Monty running wide out of 3 up the hill into 4. They're going to be side by side coming down to 5, but Monty has the inside of the preferred line. And now Russell going to take it 3 wide into 5 on the inside. And are we going to get contact? We are not. I think Monty maybe gives it up just a little bit and lets Bradshaw work his way through. And now it's Russell and Bradshaw side by side as these 4 cars are basically glued together.
Yeah, and side by side still into 7, 8, and 9. Who's going to be able to get the move done? It's Monty pulling out in front of Scott Russell. I was really worried when they had that bit of 3 wide racing into turn number 5, just because of how shallow of an approach Scott Russell had to take heading in there. Pretty much had, a matter of inches between himself and that inside painted white line. He was going to be in trouble. Thankfully, though, he slowed it down just enough, able to hug that inside very, very well. Doesn't work out in terms of gaining spots, but Scott Russell able to keep a clean race car there as we take a look at a replay to see some more squabbling that was going on. This is a little bit farther behind, involving some Masters men. Is Tom Gradwell got a front row seat to Shamazel there with Brad Cathcart involved in that as well. Trying to see the other car that was maybe involved in that is, look at that. Gradwell way too tight on the inside, heading off through turn number 2. Nearly takes some drivers with them. We may have to take a look at another replay of that rodeo ride there. What in the world?
Yeah, I think that was Diego Todeschini that was the other car involved in all of that. As back to the front here with Schramm and Pulls. still nose to tail, as we're going to see Chris Thorpe there and Marcus Burkett, I believe that is indeed correct, as well as is that Jeff Jacobson just behind, as you see both those cars just run straight off the track. As saw a little bit of contact. I don't know if that was a lot of contact, but you see those cars just get crossed up there going down into the corner, and having to take the advanced exit strategy of getting off the track and getting everything rejoined properly.
Yes, I say this very tentatively. It has been a smooth run of things here in this race. As we take a look, there was a contact between Cathcart and Todeschini, and here comes Gradwell, gets the move done, and let's watch this rodeo ride. There's the curb.
Yeah.
Back end hops up probably about 3 feet in the air. If that gravel trap didn't slow him down, that probably would have been a shot straight into those outside tire barriers.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to take a look at that once we're done with this race, but that probably had to have been about 2-3 feet of air underneath the rear axle.
Yeah, it probably was. Yeah, just obviously just on that inside line, misjudged the apex of the corner. Took it a little early, and you saw the result as getting air as Jeff Jacobson now with a black flag. Going to guess for incident points as he was involved. He was around all the other stuff going on. There's just more contact there between Todeschini and Brad Cathcart, as there we see Jacobson running wide. That might have been that might be another one on there. So he's cruising up to the point now that he is going to be looking at 1.4x, and there we go. Never mind, and there he goes. So Jacobson done, disqualified for incident limit. And he is out, but you can see obviously was trying to run the car as hard as he could and just was struggling trying to make the corner, and the X's caught up to him.
Yeah, I think that black flag probably frustrated him a little bit as well and started to run a bit more fast and loose out there on the track. Definitely a bit liberal in his use of track limits there, and unfortunately it comes back to bite him on the hind end. Jacobson out of this race. The one retirement that we have had so far here outside of your two drivers who didn't even take the start, as rather surprising as a breakaway for your top two. Felipe Puls pulling down pit lane, and Nathaniel Schramm staying out for one more lap. Now, those two, I wouldn't say they were on easy street, as Dirk Braun going to follow down pit lane along with Joshua Justice. We think about the pit stops that we saw there for Solau Shutway and Jason Green. This was brought out by Jason Grider in the YouTube chat. However, those two, I think they were probably hoping that they would come out of the pits right up at the same time, be able to work as drafting partners, help tow each other along the track. Just didn't really work out there. Even now, a couple of laps after those pit stops were done and dusted, there is a large wedge between those drivers. Al Shutway has been able to jump in front of Puls, so I guess just getting the clean air has helped them out a lot. But I was worried there. The main driver that lost out in that, obviously, both in terms of the time lost and everything else, is Jason Green. Now, we'll have to see whether Al Shutway runs out of gas, but 10 seconds pitted around the halfway mark, it may be tight, but it may be possible.
Yeah, absolutely. As Schramm still the last car to come in. Everybody else has made their fuel stop. Al Shutway, we'll see if he's going to inherit the overall lead, as he has a 4-second gap over Felipe Puls. And Jason Green, with Puls coming out kind of in between Al Shutway and Green able to maybe close that gap down and get back in the draft. And those guys may be able to work together in order to maybe make up some time to the front of the field. But obviously 5 seconds is going to be very difficult, as now Nate Schramm, our race leader, coming into the pits for his stop.
Yeah, so Schramm down pit lane, side by side through 7, 8, and 9, and that nearly ended in tears with Osbeck and Antonio Reese. Reminds me of the old joke, why was 7 scared of 8? Because 7, 8, 9. But Schramm down in pit lane, Solau Shutway gonna be the first to try and overtake him. See, it's comments like that I am surprised Guido hasn't cut my mic on the air yet. Emphasis on yet. Schramm, though, keep an eye on him, what he may do down in pit lane, still stopped in his pit stall. Looking at the stop, it's just a smidge more than Al Shutway, but he's gonna be able to blow his doors off, get that race lead, and even with that shortcut on pit exit, Schramm going to be away from him by about 1.5 seconds, and see, he still has those slightly cooler tires to try and get it up and rolling there. So Schramm and Al Shutway pretty much even keel with their stops, both just a tick over 10 seconds. It was 10.07 according to our live timing screen for Solal Shutwi, and 10.15 in the case of Shram. Now, our graphics usually round up to the nearest 10th instead of the nearest 100th like our live timing screen does, so it may appear slightly different on the graphics. That's the information we're getting right now. Either way, it is pretty much the shortest stops that we have had so far here in this race. Here you can see it on the graphics. Everybody's been able to get their pit stops done, dusted, settled, and relaxed, so everything is even keel, ready to rock and roll for the final 7 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. As we still get this battle here with Monty, Ozbek, Russell, and Reese, still battling for just the last couple of positions in the top 10. And although it was 600th of a second between Al-Shutwi and Shram, stoppage time, it was 0.6 of a second from cone to cone. So Al-Shutwi, as we get Murakami around, and he's just lost the car, looped it into the grass. We're going to get a replay here as he works his way into the chicane, through the chicane, and just maybe a little too hard. Yeah, a little too hard back on the throttle. Loops the car coming out of turn 9, and that's going to give the Masters class lead to Jorg Monty, who's going to inherit that from Chris Murakami, who's dropped down to P13, 4th in class. As now 5th in class as Rich Meesters gets by, and Murakami dropping a little further there as still trying to recover his car, I suppose. But he has dropped out, and now Murakami with a meatball. So I'm not really sure what happened. We did not see contact. So I'm not really sure. I'm going to guess there was another incident somewhere as this gap now is at the front is now 1.3. Jason Green has caught up to Poles. That gap is only about a half second or so. So those cars will be starting to work together, building the draft, and now Shram trying to close the gap down to Al-Shutwi up front.
Yeah, and so this top 3 that was very, very close has definitely been able to break away from each other. Not in a good way in the case of these two. Poles, who had a good shot to maybe grab a victory, not going to go down here in this race. Jason Green, who I thought had a good chance as well. They're going to have to hope for a Christmas miracle and probably an accident between your top 2, but they're not close enough to have a crash just yet. Still a tick over a second between your top 2 runners as we take a look to see what has put Chris Murakami out of this race.
No.
It's again the rodeo ride heading down to turn number 12. It is so blind as you head your way through there as he augured straight into the wall. That's what I was worried with Tom Gradwell. Had Gradwell not scraped against that gravel trap, he would have gone the same way that Murakami just did.
Yeah, and you can see Murakami left front broken from the contact with the barrier, and pretty much race done. He's already come to the pits and has, I'm sure, left the session at this point. So from class victory to going to end up finishing dead last in the Masters class for Murakami today. Had a really good run going, was running well inside the top 10, and just not meant to be as Monty is now in P8, and your overall Masters leader, Antonio Reese, is just behind him. So that battle not yet over, as they do have about 2 seconds behind you Simpkins with Joaquin Ozbek in between running in ninth. So they're going to see if they can close down on Simpkins, and that might give us a battle in Spec 2 as well.
As that got very close there between Monty and Ozbek, side by side between Russell and Reese. That'll be P10 for Scott Russell in the number 22 machine, your Spec 1 racer, currently running 7th at the moment in class. Al-Shutwi, your leader in the category, of course, your leader overall. You Simpkins, still your leader in Spec 2, as Yerk Monty has been able to cycle his way out into the lead in the Masters category. We're keeping an eye on your original top 4, who are starting to battle, scrape, and claw for every single spot that they can. As well as some of the drivers a bit farther behind. That's Adam Bradshaw Jr. and Diego Doschini that found themselves in a little battle there. Quite quickly deteriorates. Or at least one of them is still close quarter stuff. They head their way down the turn. That's Brad Cathcart. Still with the missing front bumper, but it seems like even with that car, with that aero damage, I guess it works out well. 2 things benefiting him. A, this isn't too much of a straight line dependent track, so even with that damage, he may be able to hold out well. And another thing to consider as well here, Charles, with ambient temperatures teetering around 85 degrees today, that air conditioning may be able to allow him to think more clearer.
Yeah, maybe, and he has Andrew Love in front of him, so he's going to be able to keep his nose or his front grille kind of tucked up So the aero issue won't be too bad. This battle's still going on. Ozbek now up to P8. So he's got Simpkins in his sights. He wants to try and close that gap down. I'm sure he's hoping that those three guys will stay nose to tail for a bit, let them close it down just a little bit as we're coming down to maybe 2 to go, I think, this time by, as the drivers are now heading their way down into the tunnel turn. So it's going to be close. 134. I'm not sure they're going to make it back, so this may be white flag next time.
Yeah, certainly getting close to the end of this as the battles are really froggy throughout the field. You got that little 2-2 battle right now, side by side, between Adam Bradshaw and Diego Todeschini in the Spec 2 category. They're going to go side by side off into turn number 5, and Todeschini runs a little bit wide as they head their way around the final turn. Your top two do. Keeping an eye to see whether that white flag is out or not. I believe it is. One more lap of racing action. It was borderline, but we got it. One more lap and about 2.5 miles left for him to try and score this victory. Schramm in P2. Now, Nathaniel Schramm has the benefit of a large gap in the championship. He can afford to maybe throw a bit of caution to the wind, but he can't afford to wreck this. It can't be a checkers or wreckers mindset. It's, I'm going to push it a little bit, but if I get second, I get second. That'll still be quite all right. You see that gap kind of close. It's Tom Gradwell picking up a black flag farther in the back of the field. That is going to sting. Some of those off-track excursions do add up here in this race. The incident points have been a bit of a thorn in the side for these drivers throughout this race. Tom Gradwell, just the latest to fall victim to it. Al-Shutwi, Schramm, battling for the race lead. Pulls and Green battling for third as Green looks further around the outside into turn number 7. Not able to get it done, but Pulls forced to be on that shallow approach. Messes up his line heading off through 7, 8, and 9, and may have to worry about a run from Green heading their way through the back end of the racetrack for the final time. There you can see him closing up. A little bit of damage on the front end of Jason Green's car, it looked like, at least from that angle. I think he may try and get a move done, but in the meantime, though, your top two have closed up 0.2 of a second, about a quarter of a second the margin as they head their way through 14 into 15 for the final time. Schramm looks for it down the inside, sends the opportunity. Al-Shutwi left the window open, but he closed it right in Nathaniel Schramm's face, and Sul Al-Shutwi got around his way around the final turn with a bit of a skate off the track to win this race. Schramm comes home in a very close quarters P2. Felipe Pulls going to withstand the pressure from Jason Green at the end of this race to round out your podium in third. Hugh Simpkins going to weather the storm in a really frantic race. He will end up winning in the Spec 2 category. P7 for him overall. Josh Justice gets a better of Dirk Braun in their little scrap that starts to get hungry right towards the end. Simpkins wins in the class. Ozbek very close to him at the end, though. 1.2 seconds the margin, as York Monty going to get the win in Masters 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Is great battles. It was 2 by 2 by 2 all the way through the top 10. So great bit of driving there, as we got a nice battle there between Phil Berry and Rich Meesters there still going on, as we've got now Jason Dunnington barfing the rainbow across the start finish line. Chris Thorpe there finishing in 16th. And now there's our, I believe that is Marcus Burkett. I believe that is our Thompson Trophy winner for today, as he was very slow coming down the front straight.
Yeah, we talked about Burkett a bit earlier on here in this race, had that 10.6 second long stop. Now, he did come down pit lane on lap 8, one of the earliest drivers to come down pit lane. The fact he made it that far leads me to believe that Sul Al-Shutwi maybe could have shaved off a little bit more time there, and he potentially would have been able to make it through to the end. But either way you slice it, so a very competitive race here at Barber Motorsports Park. Very odd low, but I gotta say the YouTube chat has been very, very active throughout this. Can see the Schrammers in full force. Weekend Warriors members Jason Grider and Michelle Lynn. I get to say this. Well done, Michelle, on a good result in the V's yesterday. See, I wasn't around to give the falling anvil, so that's why maybe I'll have to skip out on more of those shows so you can actually get some good results and not have the jinx, because that's always what looms over me is, oh my goodness me.
We're going to get anybody over the barrier. Let's go play with the spider. Nope.
Oh!
Well, they're getting ejected, unfortunately. But yeah,
don't want to hit the spider.
It may be so, but yeah, great run today. Really good. We talk about this track being pretty difficult, but I think the drivers overall did a very, very good job today managing the track. and managing the hot conditions today, and we end up with a really, really good race.
Yeah, so nobody hit the spider, which, I'm not. If I saw that spider in real life, I probably would be terrified. I'm definitely a bit of an arachnophobe, as you can see. The moment from Todeschini right at the end of the race. That was heading his way off through turn number 2, just loops it around right in front of Andrew Love. The point that I was going to raise, so Jason Grider bringing in this good little reference, talking about the Mark Martin duct right at the crotch to keep the boys cool in a hot car. My 1985 Oldsmobile Cutlass has one of those vents. Unfortunately, the air coming out of it is about as weak as I can't spit the line out. About as weak as an asthmatic's cough. Try saying that 5 times fast. Wow. But that would be maybe that's what helps Brad Cathcart to get a good result at the end of this race, even with that major front end damage. We'll have to do some investigative journalism to see how much that helps you here in these Spec Race Fords. But either way, here are your race results as I gargle some WD-40 to get my tongue unwrapped around my teeth. Sulal Shutwi gets the victory. Nathaniel Schramm in second. Felipe Puls rounds out your podium in third. Jason Green will come across the line in fourth. Josh Justice completes your overall top 5. Dirk Braun will round out your first clump of Spec 1 racers. It's Hugh Simpkins winning in the Spec 2 category. He ends up 7th overall. Joachim Osbeck will be in 8th. Scott Russell will finish this race in 9th, with Jörg Mani winning it in the Masters category, rounding out your top 10.
Yep, Antonio Reese finishing in 11th, second in the Masters, along with Adam Bradshaw in 12th, finishing our Masters podium. And the last step on the Spec 2 podium goes to Philip Berry in 13th. Rich Meester's just missing out in 14th. Jason Dunn in 15th. Chris Thorpe in 16th. Adam Bradshaw Jr. P17. Marcus Burkett in 18th. Andrew Love in 19th. Brad Cathcart in 20th. Diego Todeschini in 21st. Tom Gradwell 22nd. 23rd is Dennis Furia. Paul Jackson finishing in 24th. Jeff Wubker 25th. Chris Murakami 26th. Jeff Jacobson in 27th. And then Martin Van Eekelen and Larry Miles did not take the start of the race and will be classified 28th and 29th respectively.
And so those are your results at the end of round number 9 of the Spec Race for Florida Weekend Warriors here at Barber Motorsports Park. Again, want to thank Nathaniel Schramm, Turner Machine Development, Engager and Sons Power Systems for sponsoring this broadcast. You know, it's quite fitting that I mentioned that because he's there looking to have a chat with us, so we'll drag him into the broadcast booth to speak to the man who was very close to the victory but ends up finishing in second. So a good result as he tries to grab a championship here this season. Nathaniel Schramm joining us here in the booth. Nate, welcome in. First off, thank you for sponsoring this week's broadcast. Thank you as well as Turner Machine Development, Engager and Sons Power Systems. But how was that race for you? It looked like a pretty rough one here at Barber, especially with those boiling hot track conditions.
Yeah, qualifying was certainly felt like driving on the sun. I was happy to see it was so close, but yeah, that was definitely tricky. Just tried to keep the car balanced as we could and try not to overwork it, and seemed to work out. Got a nice finish in the end. Sewell is just a wizard at fuel saving, so he gets that, but it was really, really tricky but fun.
Yeah, it looked like a really fun race out there. Everybody able to get some side-by-side racing. I made an odd comparison between this race and the Formula V Weekend Warriors race that we saw here a couple of weeks ago, where you drivers were definitely tested at many portions, but because of those flat-out sections, pretty much from turn 9 all the way up until that 12 and 13 chicane, as well as that start-finish straightaway, and even the run down to turn number 5, I feel like there's just enough draft to keep the pack stuck together, but just enough turns whereby it was real tricky for you drivers just to keep it on the road and keep it close to your competitors.
Absolutely. I mean, you sort of saw my last stint there. I was trying as hard as I could to try to catch up with Sewell and get into that draft. I probably needed like a lap or two to really fight it out. But, you know, whenever I just mainly turn 1 and turn 2, if I just pushed that a little too hard, you know, you lost that momentum and then you don't really have the drive down the straights. But otherwise, you know, it was just super technical. The museum corner, I don't know what that complex is called, going through it's like a dipper sort of thing off to the right, and that really was tricky for me all week practicing. It's lucky I didn't really get too loose there, but everybody takes a slightly different line there, so it was interesting to see where the grip was and try to follow and try to learn, see what other people were doing.
Yeah, still a good result for you. Second place in this race as you near closer to that championship. I'll ask you about the next round of the season here in a few moments, but I do want to ask you about your thoughts heading into the final 3 weeks of this season.
Yeah, Charlotte's going to be interesting. I think it's not the new Roval. I think it's last year's Roval layout. But yeah, I'm not really familiar with those, outside of turning a few practice laps here and there. I know the rally course more than this road course, but I know it's got some pretty big bumps and curves to deal with, so that'll be definitely tricky to try to manage those and not try to take advantage of them, but not damage your car at the same time. But yeah, just, these next few weeks here, just try to get solid finishes like this. I'll take the opportunities where they come. I think, today probably a little bit less fuel would have helped out. But, it's hard when Sewell's doing his work behind and, he can keep up the pace while saving all that fuel. So it's definitely a challenge to get the wins. But as long as I can try to keep the podiums in top fives at least, I'll be happy.
And I will say, looking at the other calendar, I believe it is the 2025 layout of the Charlotte Roval. So that's slightly adjusted one with the odd hairpin right before the banking and the other slightly tightened up final chicane. So that'll be an odd one. I was really not a fan of the other layout change there, but it's racing. Everybody has their own taste, I suppose. But Nate, I'm also going to give you the opportunity and the floor to talk about Turner Machine Development and Gauger and Sons Power Systems. You talk about them a lot at the end of the interviews as your thank yous and shout outs. And of course, they were the sponsors here for the show along with yourself. So I'll hand you the floor to talk about them.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I'd like to thank you guys first here for doing the broadcasting. Slow motion broadcasting always does a great job. Always fun to watch back. A little bit about Turner Machine Development. Went to college with the owner, Keegan. He went to GE and basically learned sort of all of his engineering knowledge and stuff, and now he's going out on his own and he makes all sorts of assembly and robotics to help with manufacturing. New York, Western New York based businesses just outside the Finger Lakes area. So, always good to help a fellow New Yorker out. Gauger and Sons, I went to high school with Keith. We both got our pilot's licenses in high school together, so that was fun. He former Marine, and he works doing all of the generators. I believe it's Briggs & Stratton is his main company that he deals with. But all your standard generator installs, does all the maintenance, all that good stuff. So, and he's based in the Catskill, New York capital region area. So, if you ever need a generator or any machine assemblies, those are the guys to go to.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that caught my attention there. First off, you have your pilot's license, you said?
Yes, I do. I'm not current. Haven't flown since 2013. Money is definitely an issue in that regard. A bit like racing in real life. If you want to start a racing company or an airline and you want to make $1 million, you better start with $1 billion. But no, I had a program in high school to get a pilot's license, and most of the folks that do that will go on and continue their aviation education through college, and some of my former classmates, they've gone on to be air traffic controllers. I know some of the people I went to school or went to college with, they're now working for the airlines, so yeah, really good.
Yeah, how about them apples? I briefly considered trying to go down the other pilot route back when I was in high school. It was in the period of time between me me finally realizing that I probably wasn't going to make it to Formula One because my parents weren't born into to decades-long fortune, and then finally deciding that I would settle with broadcasting. And he also says, well, Briggs & Stratton, I have a soft spot in my heart for Briggs. Back in the karting days, I used to drive with a Briggs & Stratton World Formula, just a little bit more beefy than the other 206s that are pretty much just mainstays in karting circuits today. But Nathaniel, we'll let you go. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sponsoring this show and giving us a little bit of insight into more personal information. We'll ask you for your social security number for the season finale if you win the championship.
Certainly. Yeah, no, awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for everybody in the chat. Good to see everybody out. So, yeah, awesome.
Yeah, sounds good, Nathaniel. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time out.
See you then.
Only here on Slow Motion Broadcasting could I get away with asking a driver for their social security number. But oh boy, it doesn't look like we're gonna have anyone else have a chat with us. So we'll stall here for a bit, Charles. I do want to ask you about the Charlotte Roval next time out. That track is, as I kind of said in that interview, the Roval changes that they made. Maybe it's just down to the fact that I love the original Roval configuration with the 2019 chicane. It's certainly an interesting track, but when I think of that, I think of odd NASCAR racing, Shane Van Gisbergen, and the Spec Racer Ford race that we did on the Oval a couple of Week 13 runoffs ago that fried my computer's graphics card.
Yeah, it's that roll configuration's interesting. Obviously turn one and then that hairpin to get onto the oval section are going to be pretty critical to just get those right. But it's a pretty challenging track, especially with cars with no ABS, because you do have a lot of elevation changes, even inside the track itself in the infield section, that just makes braking a little more difficult. So it's going to be a challenging race for these drivers. Pretty tight confines, difficult corners with difficult issues with braking. And I did catch something with that interview as well, is if Nate, if he watches this back, I will say, I think Keith is going to call you and tell you there are no former Marines. There are only Marines and Marine veterans, and that's just from an Army guy talking. So that's what I've always heard. So I'm sure that Keith will probably pick on him about that a little bit.
I'm going to bring this up a little bit of picking, for lack of a better term, Michelle Lynn saying in the YouTube chat, Ron, go outside and touch some grass after this race. Michelle, I have to go outside in a hazmat suit because I'm allergic to all plant life and most types of rock. I actually did go outside earlier, got myself a 4-pack of Hank's Genuine Gourmet Philadelphia recipe root beer from my local deli, as well as some super sharp cheese. It's
I'm a big fan of root beer.
Oh, root beer is absolutely fantastic. I got that. My favorite fun little fact for all of you. Actually, we'll bring up this. Charles. Guido, come on. We'll start up this conversation maybe next week. But we'll talk about root beer come time for the next race at Charlotte. Well, thank you all for tuning into the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting today. If you never want to miss out on any of the racing action, how about you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell? We have a lot of action coming up here in the Weekend Warriors, as well as tomorrow for the season finale of the Grand Prix Tour Porsche Cup Series, as well as the Adam W.E. Step Memorial Scholarship Race on May the 30th here on the channel. That'll just about do it for the action. I want to thank Nathaniel Schramm for sponsoring this broadcast once again, as well as Turner Machine Development and Gager and Sons Power Systems. But after this broadcast here for round number 9 of this season, that will just about do it. So for myself, Ron Maunz, Charles Boshell joining me in the commentary booth, and Guido Marzucchi, who may be on a time crunch working on the cameras and the graphics of the virtual production hauler, I'd say thank you all so very much for tuning into the action here on Slow Motion Broadcasting today, and we hope to see you all wherever it is in the not too distant future.